Welcome to the Courage to Be podcast with Tanya Vasallo. Before we get into this episode, I want to share with you that I'm on a mission to close the gender gap in the podcasting world so that more and more women's voices are heard. If you feel that this is something you value too, then please rate, review, and share the podcast. And in exchange, and as my way to say thank you to you, I want to give you free access to my signature course called Manifesting Abundance, which typically sells for $997. All you have to do to gain access is leave me a review on Apple Podcasts, take a snapshot of it, and send it to help.thecouragetobe@gmail.com, and we'll get you set up with access to the course. Welcome back to the Courage to Be, where we have powerful conversations to transform your life and your business. And today I am so thrilled and honored to have Dame Doria Cordova. Welcome, Doria.
Aloha, everyone.
I am so thrilled because you are such a, like we say in Spanish, eminencia, you're an eminence, like you just, the way you carry yourself, what the impact that you have had on this planet, on humanity, you just to share. And I'm not one that tends to read about bios because I'd rather you tell us your story, but you are the CEO of Accelerated Business Schools for anyone that's listening that hasn't heard about Dame Doria. And her school is the longest running entrepreneurial and experiential transformative training organization. And she's had it since 1979. And Money and You is one of her signature programs that I want to hear about because Tony Robbins has gone through it, Robert Kiyosaki. She's worked with incredible people, Jack Canfield, just all these amazing people that I'm so looking forward to participating in one of your Money and You's. But before I get too excited, I want to hear your story. Tell us about your journey and what it is that you do, your mission. Why are you doing this?
Well, aloha, everyone. I am originally from Chile. I grew up in Chile during the 50s in Santiago, and it was like a little village. So I had the most wonderful childhood in many ways. And then my family migrated in 1962 to the United States. That's what they were calling for a lot of workers. And my stepfather had been a very successful man that had lost everything and decided to come to the United States. And so I grew up in Los Angeles from the time I was 12. And this is important to the story, though, because all these immigrants, they had all been very successful in their homelands. And on the weekends and on the evenings, they used to get together and talk about how they were going to improve their circumstances, how they were going to create businesses. So aside from my mother having a beauty salon in the 50s, a single mom, which was unheard of, to be doing that, I thought, well, I'm sure other mothers do this. I later found out, I think my mother was just about one of the few people that were so successful at doing this. So I had her entrepreneurial background and my stepfather and all these Chilean families. And I grew up in California as a typical kid and was popular and loving and had my group. And then the worst happened when I was 18 years old. And in 1968, you got married at 18. And the young man that I was engaged to, he was killed in a car accident a month before we were going to be married. But I truly feel that it was more like a suicide thing because he was really into drugs. And the Money and You book is coming out, and I really tell about that story, that it was just like the beginning of my 8 years of pure hell on planet Earth, which actually was the foundation of my life. And so he was killed, and we were not intimate that much, but when you're 18 years old, you're very, very fertile. So I was pregnant and I lost a baby the day of his birthday because I was so sad 4 months afterwards. And what occurred for me was that I shut down completely because it was so painful and it was so sad. And whenever I think of 18-year-olds or that 18-year-old in me that went through so much sadness and pain, of course I was shut down. So I spent the next 8 years completely creating success. I was a workaholic. I literally went from being an assistant legal secretary to being an interpreter, to being an official court reporter in the Los Angeles criminal court systems and also in Hawaii. So for 8 years, I just suppressed all my feelings and became very successful. So by the time I was 24, 25 years old, I had everything. I was beautiful. I was successful. I had money. I had everything that you could possibly want. And from the time my boyfriend died in 1968 to 19, we lost an additional 13 friends because it was that time. It was the early 70s and drugs had come into Los Angeles and all the major cities in the United States. The Vietnam War was happening. There was a lot of violence. It was horrific. So I just kept suppressing. Oh, and I lost a second baby. I had a second miscarriage. So now I am like in the midst of being in the court system and these things that are occurring that I just had to get away. And I was getting more and more depressed. And I am not a depressed kind of person, but I had not done one bit of work on myself. Nothing related to mindset work or transformational work or anything. So I thought, okay, if I'm going to be depressed, I might as well go and be depressed in a beautiful place. And I moved to Hawaii. So I moved to Hawaii. And because I was overqualified, I was able to be hired as the first official court reporter on the island of Maui. Usually they flew in court reporters for big cases, but I was the first one. And here began my journey into the spiritual work, into the mindset work, because at 26 in 1976, I had what could be considered an enlightenment experience. And I pretty much got in touch with the fact that I had been put on planet Earth not to be a party girl, but to actually have a job. I had no idea what that meant. And it was like in my life literally transformed. And some of my very Christian friends feel like I had, an awakening to the Christ. My Muslim friends feel like I had an awakening to Allah. Different people, and it doesn't matter to me what it is called. I love all people. I love people that love God, and I love people that don't love God. But for me, it was like I had no idea what it was. And then, of course, when something like that happens, your whole world changes, including taking you in the direction that you probably should be going. And I was wise enough to listen. So, and the next part of the story is so long, that I won't go into it, except to tell you that once I had my enlightenment experience, I moved back to Honolulu. And my first case was the state of Hawaii versus the EST organization, which was one of the biggest human potential trainings at the time, which morphed or evolved into landmark education today. They have millions and millions of graduates. And I ended up enrolling into the next training. And then that's when I had a more organized type of awakening, if you may call it that. And I ended up really realizing that I had control over nothing. I had control over not a thing except one thing, which was my consciousness. And I committed to spend the rest of my life in working on my consciousness, that I had the realization that everything was happening from within. So I needed to just kind of like come home to myself. And that's what I've been doing. That's what I've been doing all these years. And then, of course, once you commit yourself to that, then you start meeting the masters and the people that will take you to the next step and the next step and the next step. And I met Buckminster Fuller at the beginning of the Hunger Project. He verified something that I knew in my heart at all times since I was born, that there was no such thing as scarcity on the planet, that there was enough water and food and electricity to take care of every human being. So all the hunger, all the poverty on planet Earth could actually be solved. And at 27 years old in 1977, I committed my life to the eradication of poverty and hunger. But because I had this whole business background from my family, and then from having been an official court reporter and in the court system, I had this whole background in business. And I ended up being introduced to the first business school for entrepreneurs of its kind, which had been created by my mentors that were the people that I inherited the work from. Marshall Thurber and Bobby D. Porter, and they literally created what, when you look around, is considered the experiential entrepreneurial training industry that some of the people that you mentioned earlier and many other people are involved in. And I was there as a team player without realizing that a whole new industry, a whole new entrepreneurial educational system was being created. And I attended the first business school. I had another epiphany that this work had been created for me, which was an outrageous thought at 28 years old. And I ended up moving from Hawaii to San Francisco. First became an assistant, then I became an associate, then I became a partner. And by July 8th, 1985, I inherited all the work. And so I have been leading the company from the time I was 29 years old. And then I inherited it all in 1985. I've earned it. I earned it completely. Sometimes people say, Doria, an inheritance is when somebody gives you something. But it truly was an inheritance, but it was a well-earned inheritance. I worked for it. And that's what I've been doing. If you fast forward now, my job was to create learning environments where business people, entrepreneurs can come in and learn the tools, learn the strategy, learn, the distinctions, the different systems, alongside with having a sense of fulfillment and of also adding value to others. And the formula has been beyond spectacular, because now when we look back at the last 46 years, Robert Kiyosaki was somebody that I chose to be my business partner. And he was around us for 17 years. And we molded him, we supported him in creating his next step, which is the Rich Dad Poor Dad series, along with Sharon Lechter. And that book is the core message of our work, especially the Money and You work. And that book is the most sold around the world around financial literacy. But what people love is the message. So what they are loving is Money and You. And so now you have all this evidence. Tony Robbins, we trained him when he was 23 years old. And then you have people like Jack Canfield, Mark Victor Hansen, who went on to create, the Chicken Soup for the Soul, a book series that has sold almost 1 billion copies around the world in 36 languages or something. But the one that I really love are things like Paul Mitchell, Hair Products. Sadly, the original Paul Mitchell passed away in 1989, but Paul DeJoria continued with that work. Ben Cohen of Ben and Jerry's, they both did Money and You in 1979, 1980. And then you have all these change makers and industry creators that not only were committed to creating wealth, but also doing good. So my legacy is pretty much set. And I am now 75. This is without surgery or injectables. This is the good life. This is, people say, wow, you must have a good plastic surgeon. I don't. This is the good life.
I can attest, for anyone that's not watching this on YouTube, if you're just listening on Amazon or Spotify, she looks amazing. I look forward to reaching that age and as amazing beauty as you are.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And so, now I'm ready to just move completely into philanthropic work, into my humanitarian work, which I've been doing. My family, I have the most beautiful family. And so I've been doing this since I was born because of my family, my mommy and my auntie and my grandmother and my grandfather, amazing humans that were an example for me to how to live and high values. And so now, in 5 years from now, I am now in the last stages of bringing my work back to America. I have a business model, which is very important for every entrepreneur to understand, that you have to choose a business model that is in alignment with your life purpose, which is, I was very lucky to do when I was only 30 years old in 1980. And this has carried me to living the life of my dreams, because my number one value is freedom. And so that's very important to know. But now my heart, my body, every part of my being, my beloved, we live both in San Diego and on Maui. And so he's German. And so we are very global. And so now my desire is to be able to duplicate myself, but just continue with the legacy that I want to create of being part of a team of millions of people who supported the eradication of poverty and hunger on this planet, which is very, very possible. It wasn't when we first started, but it is now. And so that gives you a little tiny picture of my life.
Wow. I'm just going to take a quick pause here.
Hi there, I have something really cool for you. I want to give you free access to my signature course called Manifesting Abundance, which typically sells for $997. You can check out all the details in the show notes. All you have to do to gain access is leave me a review on Apple Podcast, take a snapshot of it, and send it to help.thecouragetobe@gmail.com, and we'll get you set up with access to the course. You can also find other free goodies in the show notes. Go check them out.
This is an incredible story and makes for like 3 other podcast episodes because I have so many questions for you that I don't know if we can squeeze them all in the time that we have. So let's rewind a little bit, like with your awakening, when you had that moment of just this calling, this awakening. Was that just overnight? Did it happen in a transition,
It
a
happened
time
in
period?
probably 1 minute. I was on the island of Kauai at Hanalei Bay, if anybody has ever been there, on a beautiful yacht. By then I was what, quote unquote, it was called a sailing bum. Me and my boyfriend and were on a tour of all the islands. By the way, put that in your bucket list to absolutely to sail around the Hawaiian Islands. It's the most safe place on the planet to go sailing around, the most beautiful place on the planet. And that's what I was doing. And I had an awakening when I was looking what is called the weirdest spot on earth, which is the beautiful mountain range, and had my heart, like I actually thought I was having a heart attack because my heart chakra, who knew about chakras then, right? I had no idea what a chakra was. My heart chakra really opened up and it physically hurt. But I thought I was dying because I was seeing my whole life and then I went backwards, but mostly, all the sadness and the pain that I had, because I was only 26 years old when that happened. So it had only, all those tragedies had just occurred. And then I went though beyond my birth and my family. And then I was kind of like one with the Great Spirit. And I was seeing like the world and the universe. I could literally see the galaxies and this feeling of the ultimate love. It's like I had no idea that kind of pure love. It was so pure. And then I came back in and I thought it had been, I don't know, 5-10 minutes. And according to my boyfriend and my roommate who was visiting with us for the weekend, they said that one moment I was saying something, then I was quiet for a minute, and then I was screaming. So it lasted probably less than a minute, according to them. And but I was completely shifted. Actually, people thought then I had had a facelift because my face changed so much and my whole face opened up. And there was a physical transformation that occurred because I was now beginning to be open, but I had no idea. There were no books, there were no podcasts. The books that you had then was Think and Grow Rich and As a Man Thinketh, which I had read. And you didn't have anything. You didn't have the internet, you didn't have computers, you didn't have people, nothing. So when I ran into the first one of the top human potential trainings, when I look back later, it was like meant to be. It was my destiny. And so I truly believe that there's a combination of what we're destined to do, but we have to be awakened enough for us to be able to follow the clues. And many people that attend our Money and You program and attend my business school and other programs, the challenge for them is that they don't trust themselves enough to follow that which they know that they should do. But for me, when I chose to stop being a court reporter, but I had saved a lot of money, so I was safe. And so I could retire for 2 or 3 or 4 years. I set it up that way because I knew that I had to go looking for this quote unquote job. And it wasn't until years after I was doing it that I was able to look back and go, oh, that's my job. So these things don't happen. You know, your purpose, your life purpose doesn't have a big sign that says, I am your life purpose. There's very few people that are that clear that quickly. It's a process. It's one foot in front of the other. And I think that that's what's lacking for many people. They don't trust themselves. And of course, I don't blame them. You're not going to walk away from a profession without having a parachute. And that is something that I highly recommend. But life goes by really fast. I was just telling this I'm writing the Money and You book finally. And I was talking to one of the writers who's very young. I said, before you know it, you're going to be 75 and you're going to feel the same way you did when you were 30. It's like you look in the mirror and go, oh my God, what happened? But inside, you never age. You don't age. You still have this consciousness. But what you do is spiritually mature, and you become more calmer, and you become more subdued, and all those things that matter so much, they don't matter. It's like we know we're in a learning planet because we couldn't handle this kind of peace at 30. It's like, it would have freaked me out. I would have thought there was something wrong. So it's like it's a process. So you're here, enjoy the process, enjoy the dance, but work on yourself and work on your financial. This is really important. What most people don't understand is that working on your financial stability, security, financial independence is key to how humans function well, because money, cash, money, resources, crypto, whatever you believe in, is crucial in order for you to exchange, to have things, beautiful things, comfortable things, education for your children, good health access when you need it, but also to be able to do those things, be able to go to the spa, take vacations, take time off if you want. So creating an economic engine is crucial for your well-being. And if you are not an entrepreneur, be part of an entrepreneurial team where you can create tremendous wealth. You can have profit sharing. And this is what we are about in the Money and You program, is creating an economic engine wrapped around your life purpose. But this is all a process. And there are key things that you have to do to move forward. One of them is to forgive yourself for all the mistakes that you have made, know that they're learning experiences, and really commit yourself to creating a good living. You know, it's this whole thing. This is the saddest thing for me at my age to see with young people that are feeling so entitled, and all these parents that are training their children to being so entitled. They don't prepare them because life is tough. People die. People get sick. Accidents occur. You know, wars open up. And if we don't prepare our children to handle life, they're going to be the ones that are not going to have the emotional intelligence or the thick skin that it takes to live on planet Earth. So that's what we are about.
Wow. Again, we definitely are going to have, once your book comes out, we'll have to do another podcast episode because it's just so rich, the life that you've lived and what you've created and the legacy that you're living, and still what you're wanting to create, you know, and like the focus with the humanitarian aspect of it and your capacity to just see, you know, and what's possible for us as humanity. And creating a training, an educational system that you've done with your business, and training change makers and visionaries that are going out. I almost see it as like you're sending everyone out with their unique, you know, purpose to go do amazing things in the world so that we can all lift up together. What is the secret sauce with all that, Dame Doria? Like, what is the secret, you know, for all the success for yourself first, but also the success for all the people, all the graduates that have come through Money and You, as well as your other courses that you've set up for that all of us can lift together. Can you
So
attribute it to one or two things or no?
okay, so let's talk about money first, because I think that people want to know that. Real quick, we have limited amount of time every day. We all have 24 hours a day. So when you are going to go to work, whether you have your own business or you're a team member, right? What you want to do is you want to just, what are the most income generating activities you're going to do while you're working? This, let's put aside anything else, if we're talking about just work alone. Just remember the days are cut in thirds. 8 hours of work, 8 hours of sleep, 8 hours of doing other things, right? Like that's kind of like how it got created in economically developed countries. Don't get me started in talking about the 2 billion people that have no water, electricity, and have to work 24/7 to survive. So we're talking to economically developed countries now, people. So income generating activities, if you're going to be working, that's what my friend who is now an angel, Bernie Dorman of CEO Space, used to say, now, money that you need now for survival, for having a good life and all this and that. Income generating activities, that's what you need to focus on. The second thing that you need to focus on every day is creating leverage, no matter what you do. And so leverage, and some people say, well, there's nothing I can do to leverage. I am a masseuse, I'm a hairdresser. Well, study, do research on what are the most successful spa owners or massage, businesses owners, right? So what you need to do is leverage whatever time, money, and energy you have, and the access that you have. I wrote a book called Access to Cash, accesstocashbook.com. You can find it in Amazon. I think it's $15. It's a great little book that talks about how we have access. And that's my new definition of wealth. So you have to make a list of all the assets that you have and the access that you have, and then begin to kind of mine those things. It's like a miner, right? You have to work it. You're looking for gold. And so, but the biggest thing is getting educated around money and finances, and clearing your deservability level. We all have this glass ceiling of how much money we're supposed to have or to make, or that we deserve, and that comes from our environment. That's what you get the Rich Dad Poor Dad book, right? And Sharon Lecter, the co-creator of that whole series, has written the foreword of my Money and You book, because she was partners with Kiyosaki for 10 years. I was partnered with him 9 years, but I was around him for 17 years, so he was around us. And one of the things that in there, what you have to do is that we are not educated around money, finances. So you have to educate yourself around entrepreneurial business education, which should be taught from kindergarten, because every child, every teenager, every adult needs to deal with money. Whatever you call it, however you want to deal with money, that is just a vehicle. Ultimately, you're going to have to deal with some sort of tool of exchange, no matter what you call it. The other thing that needs to occur is that you need to clear your deservability, because we learn it from our environment, from our family, from the first jobs that you have, from the teachers, from religious institutions, from your neighbors. So if you have a limit on how much you should make, so I'm going to give people a couple of gifts. One of them is that I'm going to give you a link for my Fridays with Doria platform. And in there is it's called the Magical Recovery Exercises, which I started doing at 27 years old to constantly expand my deservability level, so that when I go to the next one and I go to the next level and the next level, I started with this crazy figure I heard when I was in the 70s. I probably was 25 years old. And I heard somebody say that they were making $25,000 a month. Now, I don't know if you realize this, but that would have been probably close to
150,
500,000.
yeah.
Today, that's how much they made. And I fell in love with that figure. And I went, oh, that's $300,000, right? A year. I mean, you were a millionaire, right? By the way, the IRS for many years, if you make $250,000 4 years in a row, you're considered a millionaire by the IRS. So even if you don't think you are, the IRS thinks you are. So, okay, so now you have this figure that I made up. So then, of course, when I grew up and then I had this business going how I wanted it, I reached that $300,000 a year. And then it was like, oh, where do I want to go next? And then I had to work on myself. And then where do I need to go next? I have to work on myself. Always, always, always. So that's the aspect of creating an economic engine, but also working on yourself. And then the other thing that is very important around money and finances, and I said it earlier, you need to create a business model. And I'm going to give, this is my second gift. So later you're going to have a link for people to go to moneyandyou.com and be able to download a book that I wrote about 9 years ago. Long story. It's a simple little book. I have to update it one of these days. Quite a bit of it is in the New Money and You book, but listen, it's a simple little book. You can read it in less than an hour. And the business success model shows you the different steps on creating success, a successful business. And then you have to understand your values, because most people would say, in economically developed countries again, most people would say that their number one value is going to be love, family, and some that are shy will say freedom. But for most people, it's freedom. So people love financial freedom. They love financial independence. They love to be free. Human beings love to be free, to do whatever we want, however we want, without hurting anybody else. And so let me just say, I mean, for sure, it's my number one value since I was born. I mean, I remember when I got my first bicycle when I was 7 and I was flying through the universe and I was free. Tengo
You're
libertad,
speaking,
puedo ir a donde yo quiera. I was gone
yeah.
all day long, right?
You're
So,
speaking my language. As soon as you said freedom, I was like, yes, so that's me. That's my number one value. And I identified it with the same thing you just did with the bicycle, being able to ride free anywhere. But keep on going, please.
no. And so if you know your value, I would not call love a value, because we are love. Human beings, animals. If you haven't watched enough Discovery Channel, go see how animals will protect their little babies the same way humans do. So we are love. Our nature is love. And yes, there's a lot of people that I worked in the criminal court system. So don't tell me about the criminals out there. I got it. I was there, front row seat to all the criminals. Got it. But naturally, most people love love. So take a look at your values. And then it's like we are like this. Think of us as a wheel, and we have all these spokes. And the spokes are, health and money and family and education. You think about it. We are a holistic system. We are a package. We're not just one thing. And this is something that I think that, and Buckminster Fuller, the man that I met in 1977 that awakened me to sufficiency as opposed to scarcity. Buckminster Fuller speaks about this, that what we have to do is think of ourselves being generalists, not just like a comprehensivist that just kind of focuses on one thing. That's one of the big mistakes of traditional education. So what we want to do is we want to just be like generalists and also view our lives that way. So, and this take me to you understanding now that today, in nearly 2025, there is a parallel educational system that is now reaching $30 billion a year. Excuse me, a week. $30 billion a week is education, the kind of education that I do, the training business, coaching, all the most successful multi-level marketing network MLMs, they all educate their people, right? And then all the online education. Phoenix University, a $6 billion a year organization that's online. All the online, of course, after COVID and everything went online. Now the big universities even have a lot of online programs. So the thing about getting up and going to school and just learning certain topics went out the window probably in 80s and 90s, and it has been picking up speed. And then, of course, it really got into the planet with COVID. And so now you have this other educational system, but most people still think about going to traditional school, getting themselves in total debt, being in debt for, you come out of school $500,000 in debt. I mean, and then you can't find a job. It's like, come on. You got to start thinking for yourself. You have to start really researching, but then you can't make people wrong because we are products of the traditional educational system, which is don't ask any question. We will tell you what to do. We will tell you which way to go. But the world changed long ago, and people are being left behind. They're afraid to make mistakes. They're afraid that they're not going to be doing the right thing without understanding it. This is a core teaching in Money and You, which is that we learn by making mistakes. And so that gives you a sense of my universe and where we are. But many people, and if they're listening to this in the middle of traffic right now, you're listening to this and you're stuck somewhere, you really need to take a look, because there are other ways of doing things and you need to get educated, start reading. Don't waste your time anymore. I get it. I love Netflix and I watch something every day online. I love my shows. That's my little time off for myself. But the rest of the time, you need to listen to this, come to Money and You, do my distinctions program. I will introduce you, have the courage to be. I love this. When I was approached by our mutual friend, Laurita, it was like courage to be. Of course, I want to do that. Of course, because it takes courage to be. It's not an easy task, but life is not easy, you guys. Whoever told you life was going to be easy, they wanted you to think that because they wanted to kind of make you feel better, but probably did not do you a good favor. Life can be hard, and you need to have the courage to be.
Oh, thank you. Amen. Wow. That is just so powerful. What are you learning these days? Like, because we all have to keep on getting educated. And I consider myself like, I'll be learning something new until the day I drop dead. I'll be like 100 years old and still learning something. What are you learning, Dame Doria?
140, by the way. You're going to be
Yes.
100. Do you really see me dying of old age in 25 years?
No, I think right now it says I have a book there, How to Live to 120. With our health, with the technology, with everything that we have, I really do believe that our generation we're making it past the hundreds. There's
Well,
so
actually,
many more centuries.
not just your generation. I have a 99-year-old mother.
Oh, that's
And
so
aside from
wonderful.
having dementia, she's in great shape. And
That's
thank God we
fabulous.
have a good place that takes care of her and everything. We are living longer and longer. So
Yeah. Even
so
more reason to make money. But what are you learning these days? I'd love to hear.
I am learning the American market because I have an engine that can take care of me for lives to come. So that's handled. But I decided to open up North America, and in the United States and Canada and Mexico is a little different, but North America as a continent is a very different market than any other market. So I am leveraged and I have licensing partners in the Asia Pacific region in 6 different languages in many different countries. And I chose to spend 6 years. I started about a year ago to expand the North American market. So like I teach in my distinctions program, the different stages of business. I am in a startup for my business in North America. But by the time I'm done, because I will use all the tools that I know that work, but I know that I have made mistakes here already. And I know I am going to make mistakes, but it's okay. That's how you learn.
Mhm.
I am going to create an economic engine. And I'm going through all the learning, sales and marketing, people and organization, money and finances, and what I am good at. So the biggest challenge for me is called money and you. So when people hear about that, they go, oh, I've been to many money programs. Oh, Tony Robbins, I already went there. And oh, he's fantastic. Oh, Chicken Soup for the Soul. I read all those books. Oh, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I read all those books. I'm rich in real estate. Yes, but are you happy? Are you happy? Are you rich and happy? And so my graduates are not my competition. They are my leverage of purpose, but people are very confused. So I am now wading through everything, through the bushes, through the chat. Okay, how do I communicate about myself? Through leverage. I can't be the one that only speaks. So that's where now you have the book, you have the, all the interviews, all the movies, all the things. But I am also guided by something much higher than me that tells me where to go. It not tells me, it shows me. I don't hear voices. It's like things come in front of me, and this is a trick. This is a superpower, to be able to see when something comes in front of you and it's like, oh, do I take that? Do I take that step? And the question is, what is your end goal financially? And I'm very clear about the end goal financially. What is the impact that you're going to make? I'm very clear about that. What are the steps that need to be taken? What are the tools that can help me? And I talk about this in the Money and You book, which should be out around February. And it allows us to be able to discern what step to take. But I am having to be a student of my own work as I'm developing a new market. And it is so much fun. For me, it's so much fun. And I do have the luxury, but you're supposed to have that luxury by the time you're 75 years old.
And you earned it, like you
money.
said.
Yes. Do not have to worry about what people think about you, but also to have an understanding that integrity and ethics is it's like where you live. It's like you are a baby in a womb, and the liquid in the womb is integrity, because that will determine how much people trust you, how much credit you can get. Read the book, Access to Cash. I talk a lot about that. And then how people will get behind you and will support you and will get into your team with you, how you can exchange things. If you have people's trust, graduate of our course, Greg Link and Stephen Covey Jr. wrote a book called The Speed of Trust. It's one of the best books ever. When people trust you, then you kind of have these cushions around you. So you want to build these cushions around you that will support you in being successful. And I'm learning a whole bunch right now. I'm even going into a lot of listening to podcasts. And if people go to my Facebook, DC Cordova, there's a bunch from the Los Angeles Tribune. There's a bunch of really long summits, and there was one on marketing. Wow. There was one on neuroscience. Wow. A bunch of people get together and talk about, for 15 minutes, 20 minutes, the most an hour, the masters in their talk. We get to talk a little longer, and we get to talk about what that area, and I'm immersing myself in marketing, because marketing is rocket science. So that's what I'm learning.
Wow. I love that you're still open, that you're open to learning, that you're open to receiving that guidance. That's the thread that I'm feeling as I'm getting to know you here. So where can people find you if they want to be part of your community? You've given us several things, and we'll have these in the show notes, like your different books and stuff, but is there any particular place, or do you want to share about Money and You coming up?
Yes, well, Money and You is coming up. Well, right now it's only on twice a year in America. Otherwise, people have to fly to Asia, but they're beautiful places to fly to, but it's easier to come to San Diego. So on January 15th in the evening, we begin on the evening on Wednesday night, and it goes all day Thursday, all day Friday, all day Saturday in San Diego. That's moneyandyou.com. And right now we have a beautiful offer that you will send to people, and you will send the links to for what is available now. And because thank you so much for listening to this podcast. You get a gift. You get a few gifts. So
Yes.
money, and when you go to moneyandyou.com to download the book, you'll also see a webinar. There's a webinar. It's called Webinar 2024. And on Fridays at 12 noon, I or a teammate will do it's a conversation on distinctions from money and you, and also an opportunity to learn about it. So that's another place. But the one that I really love, and is done through my foundation, is called fridayswithdoria.com. And Fridays with Doria has almost 5 years library of free entrepreneurial education. And it started during COVID in order to support my worldwide network. And I just don't have the heart to close it down. So it used to be done every week. During COVID, we had so much fun. Every Friday we get together. And then as the world opened up, we took it to once a month. And then I also do this beautiful thing. It's called Ho'oponopono prayer that I learned from Morna Simeona. And I do those once a month. And so that's nothing commercial. That's for me to just do the prayer, and you all are with me while I do the prayer with my beloved. And then, of course, if you just follow me on Facebook, you want to get to a place where you can give a lot of things away. And a lot of marketers go, oh, no, you got to make yourself really scarce. Make yourself scarce. Well, no, I don't want to be scarce. I have people from all over the world that go to Fridays with Doria and listen to those recordings. They go to YouTube and find me. They go everywhere, and they're working on their entrepreneurial education. They are learning. They don't have access to anything else. So that's my gift. But there's a lot of really good education in there for those of you that want to just get educated on entrepreneurship. So that's a great place to go to, and then do the exercises in there.
Thank you. And we'll put all of these in the show notes too. And for those of you that are interested in going to San Diego, January of 2025, if you're listening to this episode past the date, still go and check the link on the show notes, because you'll see when the next Money and You is happening. But if you do sign up for Money and You before December 21st, you get a good discount. So click on the link in the show notes. And as we're wrapping up, Doria, I love asking my guests, what can our listeners do to live a life with more courage?
What they can do to live a life with more courage? Trust the dance. Trust the dance. Trust that whatever is happening to you, no matter how painful it is. And I love another famous graduate, Mark Victor Hanssen. He says, when you're in the middle of your worst experience, say this to yourself: this is going to make a great book someday.
That's a great one to remind ourselves of.
And I've had so much loss. I've healed my heart so tremendously, but just how long ago was it? A month ago? Not even a month ago. No, not even 3 weeks ago. I lost my most amazing instructor. We had been around 37 years, and he was my instructor for 32 years, one of Australia's most successful entrepreneurs. And he just passed away a couple of months after turning 70. And it was like so heartbreaking, and even though in the middle of this, I'm going, this is going to make a great book someday. It's like my heart is still broken when I see his name or I see something. I can't believe he's gone. So life happens. And so at the moment that happens, you have to really say to yourself, this happened for a reason. And so when I talked to his wife and the children and the family, he had such a bad stroke. No way would he have wanted to live another 20 years incapacitated that way. It's like, it was such a blessing in many ways that he left this world. And that's kind of like a little tiny good news in the middle of the most horrific news. But at the same time, as I began to do more and more of my inner work, because it is an inside job, I was like, oh my God, he's free. He's free, because I truly have experienced another place. And so for me, he is in a for reals. He's in a real much better place. And then I began to understand that was his journey. And then I began to go into peace as opposed to spending months and years trying to make sense of it. When we get that every human being, including those people that we love the most, are in their journey, and we have to respect that. Mm-hmm. We have to, that gives you courage. That gives you courage to be, because acceptance is something that comes with the age, but if you can practice it, no matter how old you are, it will bring you more peace, and it will get you through what they call the dark night of the soul. Just acceptance. This is what happened. Let's cry a little, let's celebrate a little, but let's get through it. And that will be so helpful.
Thank you. Thank you for your words, for your wisdom, for your time today with us. I really appreciate this. And we'll have to do a follow-up episode when the book comes out, because this was just, I feel like we were scratching the surface. So much more to learn from you. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your podcast. Thank you. Thank you. I can hardly wait until we interview you, because I know there's a big story there, because we teach, right, that which we need to absolutely understand and to be able to comprehend. So congratulations and thank you. Thank you for all the ripple effects of all these people that you bring into the masses, which I know that each person that you bring is helping someone or many. And for that, we're very grateful. Thank you.
Thank you, Dame Doria. It's mutual when we can reflect back, right, of what we're each putting our little pieces into the human puzzle, right, and the human experience. Thanks again, and we'll have you soon. Have a fabulous day.
Aloha, everyone.
Hi there. I have something really cool for you. I want to give you free access to my signature course called Manifesting Abundance, which typically sells for $997. You can check out all the details in the show notes, and all you have to do to gain access is leave me a review on Apple Podcasts, take a snapshot of it, and send it to help.thecouragetobe@gmail.com, and we'll get you set up with access to the course.